prison sentence currently. So police can arrest them, potentially charge them, but they wouldn't actually be detained behind bars. And about 90 people have been arrested over the last 10 days, but they can only be detained for a maximum of 20 from yesterday on the M25. If you were a driver, I just disagrees with the methods. And this is a difficult one, isn't it?
It is.
For those who, especially in the current energy bills crisis, insulating your home seems like, you know, a perfectly reasonable
by the way,
solution.
the guy who's...
and a half for school children.
Absolutely.
And many of them facing GCSEs and A-levels, having not learned what they need to learn and still not back in the classroom.
And the national...
in that meeting. And also you're very inspirational, actually, for a lot of women who sometimes find it hard to stand up for themselves. And you've sort of distilled that advice into this handbook for life.
I think that's all.
Jackie magazine.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really...
Deals so well with all of the disruption. Would you...
Hello, good morning. It's just gone 6:30. Welcome to the programme. I said this last week. We do need on this show a silver bell, which we can from time to time, not that often, but we can ring on days of good news, mornings of good news. Because at flipping last, the government have got a grip, finally got a grip on Insulate Britain and on these mad protesters on the M25. They've upped their game, finally.
Very well right at the moment when these protesters are extremely unpopular outside of those...
If it's used against a cause where the protesters, such as myself, are blatantly breaking the law, then we deserve to be...
We already have a law that they're breaking. So why does the Home Secretary need new powers?
Because the current law clearly isn't tough enough and isn't enough to keep them in jail. If they break the injunction, you mentioned, and that's a perfectly good argument, I think we're in the here and now, and we have to deal with this.
The trouble is they are already breaking the law. There are laws against obstruction of public highways.
It's absolutely civilised, perfectly legal way of dealing with a problem which has not been dealt with so far by existing law. It's an injunction. That's a perfectly civilised, democratic thing to do. Or if you agree with mostly what you're saying and what you're saying, that actually it's a step too far, and it could be abused in the future.
It could be used or seen as overreach. And would it have clamped down in a negative and undemocratic way, for instance, on the protests for votes for women or on protests for civil rights? Andrew, I just wonder whether, no one's going to... Extraordinary is that there isn't currently a power to stop people stopping traffic on the M25.
Hence the injunction. Look, if my mythical silver bell, I'd push it across to you now, and I'm sure you'd ring it, because
Dr Hillary, about bad news, I'm afraid, Dr Hillary, more than one...
There it is.
Marvellous. Good news for cheese lovers, Dr Hillary. Adults who consume lots of dairy are less likely to develop heart disease.
Really?
Absolutely. So we've always been...
Thank you. CO2. I mean, it's a quick fix, but it looks as if they've fixed that.
Yeah.
And they're going to be paying the company that has not been producing CO2 to churn it out within the next 2 or 3 days. So we will have turkey at Christmas.
Yeah, otherwise...
End of an Oscars speech. It's still to come on the programme. Legendary council official Jackie Weaver joins us in the studio. You're watching Good Morning Britain on ITV. It is competition time now. We're giving away our biggest prize ever. Andy, yesterday you...
Alrighty.
Jackie Weaver became a viral sensation during the thick of lockdown when that Zoom meeting of the Handforth Parish Council, which she was overseeing, was shared online.
It's just one of those moments that life turns on a sixpence, and her life changed like that. This infamous meeting spiralled into total chaos because Jackie had been called in to host and support councillors. They lost their rag. They said that she was unlawfully acting as director of proceedings. They got incredibly pompous about it all. They totally lost their cool before being booted out of the chat by Jackie. Just a quick clip to remind you.
Right, it's time for a look at the weather. Here's Laura.
Well, if you're above a certain age,